In the great pantheon of Aardman films, there are many that are fantastic, family-friendly flights of fancy for everyone to enjoy.
It's the wrong trousers, Gromit.
And which have received plenty of critical acclaim. Some have even had the honour of being covered by yours truly here on this channel. But there's one feature-length film from Aardman that has seemingly been forgotten the more time has passed since its release. The studio's ill-fated first attempt at a fully CGI feature-length film, Flushed Away. Given how fondly so many of the other films by the studio are remembered, I thought that it might prove to be constructive to look at one of its worst performing films and see what can still be learnt about their filmmaking process, even when it doesn't achieve the success that might be expected of it. Flushed Away focuses on the story of Roddy.
Me, that's Roddy St. James of Kensington.
And the adventures he encounters as he attempts to find his way back to the plush Kensington residence he calls his home after he's unceremoniously flushed away down his own toilet by an unruly rat from the sewers.
You were gonna try and flush me?
Let's see how you like it.
He finds himself in these same sewers and tries to get help from Rita, a hard-working sewer rat who gets Roddy entangled in the evil machinations of a toad who despises rats and craves power, royalty, and a new breeding ground for his children.
Surrounded by filthy rats in this joyless, sunless void. But don't worry, little men. Daddy will get rid of them all.
As a general plot outline for a family-friendly, 90-minute animated adventure, this seems fine, if not particularly spectacular, which, coincidentally, seems to be what a lot of the reviews from the time said of the film itself. The fact that something so serviceable is one of Aardman's worst performing films says a lot about the impeccably high standards usually produced by the company. But when their films reach these lofty standards, they do so normally not just because of a fantastic plot outline. It's in the details of the films, the little character moments. The one-liners.
I don't want to be a pie. I don't like gravy.
And brilliant slapstick constantly being made throughout the story.
Don't leave! Get over to the...
The plethora of hidden jokes put in the background for the briefest of moments, and the incredible speed that seems to be moving everything in the plot along unnoticed, until all the action explodes at once. And that all work collectively to make the film as a whole feel vibrant, warm, and wondrously loving.
Well done, we did it! Ha ha!
So can we say that Flushed Away fails to do all of those positive things found in Aardman's best work?
Well, what do you think?
He's a madman! Run away! Run!
Pardon me, my fly's undone.
Well, perhaps the easiest answer for why Flushed Away might not succeed in those sorts of things is to say that Aardman's best work is in stop-motion claymation, whereas Flushed Away was the company's first fully CGI animated feature-length film. But Arthur Christmas, produced later by Aardman, is also CGI, and seemingly fulfills what we might call these typical Aardman qualities, at least going by the critical and popular consensus at the time. Furthermore, I think Flushed Away does in fact show a lot of these Aardman qualities as well, and was clearly crafted by people who cared about the story they were telling. There are jokes galore, from the slapstick that lands...
Yes?
There's one person round here might be able to help you.
Might. Really?
one-liners that work...
We leave immediately.
What about dinner?
We leave in 5 hours.
little character moments that reveal humorous personal histories...
I used to work in a laboratory up top. Yeah? Big shampoo job. I was dark grey when we started. Yeah. Still, it cleared up my dandruff.
and combinations of all three.
Keep your legs straight when you hit the water.
I kept my legs straight, Spike.
I mean, that cockroach is reading Kafka's The Metamorphosis, for goodness sake.
A new stove might be nice.
And that's without mentioning the Greek chorus made up of slugs.
Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy now.
Background jokes and careful little touches like those fill the film and give the world it's set in a sense of humour and personality that is typical of an Aardman film. Yet something about it still feels a little off.
We're doomed.
Perhaps it's the way the film and its characters are animated, very much as if it were a stop-motion claymation project, with staccato, jerky jumps between the characters' movements, never quite seeming as fluid as is expected in non-stop-motion animation. It could also come from the way the film is lit, or appears to be lit, which makes everything seem a little bit flatter and more stilted than is the case when real physical lighting and the experts who configure them are in use. This can potentially be put down to the limitations in animation at the time, but others before it did it better.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
And nevertheless, it adds to the somewhat uneasy, unreal effect the film can have on its viewers. Perhaps also it's in the physical detailing of the characters themselves, or rather the lack thereof, because most of the characters appear to be too smooth or plainly featured to sit comfortably with the viewer. They are supposed to be rats, or a cartoonish interpretation of rats at least, but their smooth, nearly featureless faces, combined with slightly awkward hair and teeth, add up to make them characters an audience might not warm to as much as, say, a put-upon but loyal dog made of plasticine.
Oh, I do like a bit of gorgonzola.
So there's potentially more to the complaint that the film isn't good because it isn't claymation than initially seems to be the case, but I still think that there's more to alternative takes on the film's failing beyond just its animation style. The film suffers regularly with somewhat awkward and clunky shifts in tone, going from slapstick humour to emotional confessional in the blink of an eye.
Keep still!
We just talk about this?
Real or not, that ruby was gonna change my life!
A few moments later.
Rita?
Just go away, please.
I'm sorry.
That this conversation in particular happens to be the first time Roddy and Rita, our two protagonists, have had any conversation that wasn't specifically goal-orientated.
Wait, that'll never hold both of us.
You're right. Toodaloo.
And comes in the middle of when Rita is raging at and physically assaulting Roddy, adds to the jarring juxtaposition of the emotive chat being had instantly and completely honestly between these two characters.
It was going to be the answer to all our prayers. And now it turns out it was a stupid fake.
This notion of clunkiness in the film can also be applied to the use of pop music to add extra momentum to action sequences. The switch between the movie score and a pop song to back up an action sequence can be seen here.
Danger is my middle name.
I thought it was Leslie.
And it takes away from a naturally escalating sense of tension that could otherwise have been had with a score set specifically to the beats of this action scene.
Rita!
And is something which you got in Aardman's most famous action sequence from The Wrong Trousers.
Don't worry, Gromit. I'm cool. Right behind you.
This main action sequence that utilises a pop song is a chase that lacks the sense of increasing momentum, threat and peril, as well as things happening in the scene to the same beat of the score.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And obviously this criticism about pop songs doesn't apply to the slug-based musical interludes.
Lonely, I'm Mr. Lonely.
Also, given the relatively simple structure of the plot, there are just a few too many moments in the film that feel like it's taking an unnecessary shortcut.
No one's ever got past the rapids at Hyde Park.
The film needs Roddy and Rita to team up and trust each other, so they do.
All right, you got yourself a deal.
In the middle of a fight. And then they don't trust each other again.
He's gonna steal your boat.
He won't steal my boat.
He's stealing your boat.
He isn't stealing my
He stole your boat.
What?
And then Roddy needs to get the trust back.
Say, you can't really intend to just strand me like this. You're not that heartless. Okay, maybe you are.
One quick song later.
Poor, poor Roddy flushed out his own party. Rita, can't you find it in your heart?
To help him.
They do.
So our deal's still on?
Sure it is.
When the Toad's villainous plan is worked out by Roddy,
He's waiting till half-time.
we have a flashback of all the important points of the plan being revealed.
What do you want it for, anyway?
Oh, you'll see. Come the World Cup final this afternoon.
When the audience already knows what the Toad's plan is from much earlier on in the film.
My plan complete. To wash away once and for all the curse, the scourge of rats.
There's a general sense that these sorts of things aren't a requirement for the film to work, or that the film would work better without such easy shortcuts being used. Whilst this is a kids' film, I think it can do better than this.
Okay, men, to action!
We surrender!
No, not that one, you idiots! The Kung Fu thing!
There doesn't have to be a big pop song to carry an action sequence. You can rely on a score to create a greater and tighter sense of tension moment to moment. There can be a little bit more groundwork to the relationship changing between our two protagonists, without the pace of the film suffering.
Well, I may have been a bit harsh at first. Well, what I really mean is, thank you for saving my life. For saving our lives. You know, I come up here every night and look out to that hill and just imagine what it must be like on the other side. It's funny, I've never actually felt grass beneath my feet.
There needn't be a series of flashbacks to completely telegraph Roddy's decision to go back down to the sewers, without our viewers losing a sense of the plot. But the reason this film can do better is because it has a solid base to work from in the first place, combined with the fact that the people making it clearly have a passion for making funny, endearing stories full of memorable characters which capture the imagination, and doing so all in a manner that's particularly unique to Aardman.
Have you seen my dad?
Flushed Away, then, is a film with plenty of flaws, which could be enough for some to dismiss it as irrelevant, when compared to the other fantastic family-friendly films that Aardman has produced. Some of its comedic ideas, though, and its creative flair in executing those, show that there's plenty of Aardman magic in there too, if you want to look hard enough for it. If, for instance, you want to give it a second look.
Oh, I love a happy ending.
Oh, you've gone soft. I like unhappy endings with lots of violence.
There we go, I've answered the title of the video, so now the video has to end, preferably with a joke.
Oh, righty.
I saw an opportunity and I seized it.